SMF MMT. Here's the S&P 500. It is the weekly chart. Now, what we did earlier is we've already populated the lines, and each one of these lines in this particular day for Monday will be 10.88 per line ratio. Okay, so basically the system has already done that. We're going to talk about the relevancy of everything you've been taught is about where is this trend momentum going to either go, why would it go higher or why would it go lower? And then what will you do to pull the trigger? And what kinds of trades are you going to be using with it? Well, number one, we trade the S&P 500 index options, and basically we have a big problem that has happened that in the last 8 trading days on individual equities is that one of the part of a market top is the amount of selling into the top. Okay? And basically what we're going to talk about is what these mathematical equations are related to, either a strong trend, a medium trend, which is the beginning process of going from strong to medium, and then weak. And what calibrates that is all of the things right here. What I am going to do for you is I'm going to click on half of this bar right here. And that bar that I'm going to click on, let me get it correct for you. It's this bar right here that I want to zoom in on. Right there. And that's this bar right here. I'm going to go under the hood where everything is dynamically calculated on a daily 5-day compounded basis. And here is half of that bar. MMTs, it's 1200.48. That's that upside. Let's take a look at half of this bar here. This was the first reversal bar prior, and you can see here when you closed, you can see what you've been taught, MMTs, is that minus 89.83 ratio continued to go, and at times we stopped, but we were diminishing in value, and we did toward the tops. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at is that this red bar right here at 1271 is one up. That's the upside for now. This secondary one that we'll be looking for, and I keep talking about this one, this is that 1135 bar. So let's go back to the top bars, 1200. Let's get there. There we are. Now, this key bar right here, that was on 5.3. Notice it was 1135.46. Now, you'll know that when I go over to the other part of the chart, because that's during that time, that's what the info panel mathematically calculated. I was minus 31.79, minus 32.55, and I kept the higher denominator of that diminishing weekly mathematical moving average. When that goes weak, then the trend gets weaker. And as the two decipher between the 10 and a 20 week, you come up with the total, which is also part of the glory of the SMF trend analyzer for you to understand that directional momentum, and rather it's to the upside and or rather it's to the downside. This bar right here is going to be a key bar on where these markets go. I'm showing you that mathematical number. I'm going to go back over here, MMTs, and I'm going to go to this bar right here. And I'm going to blow up and see how much of the chart will go in there, if it will all fit. There we go. Yeah, it's kind of scrunchy, but that's okay. The thing about it is, right over here is the part that we're going to be focusing on. That's 1135 on the S&P. Currently, the closing price on the S&P 500 is 1146. What does that mean? Is that I'm still mathematically, I am above that 1135 by 11 handles. And what we're going to be focusing on over here in this topping process, let's go way back up here to the top. 1144.63 MMTs. I'm going to blow up the cycle because I want you to understand when you're going to be aggressive. If you have to buy the SDS as an ETF pair and you got to short the index, and if this is going to go weak, and when we start to correct here, I'm going to get net long that VIX as well. So there's about 4 or 5 trades that can go into one trade. And so instead of getting paid one way, what about getting paid 5 ways on a trend? And understanding why that trend will do what it will do. One of the keys is right here. I want to point this bar out to you. This half narrow range topping bar in the S&P with it could not close above 1150. And I'm going to show you down here in the info panel that we spiked to 1157.16. And we had talked about that during the live trading room. But the problem that I have is I'm diminishing off of the high there, and I undercut that 1135 here. But then we managed to get a close above that number that we talked about earlier in the video. What you're going to be basing your trade on is that the intraday range here will drop mathematically and we'll start to put in more weakness in the next weekly range. If I come down and break below that 1135 and that 1135 becomes new resistance, that's the confirmation. Because what will end up happening up here is that this deterioration in the beginning with the weekly moving averages going to negative ratio means that the current cycle of this breakout, first week, narrow range, second, third, pretty nice weekly move there. And each one of these movements here, you can tell what the weekly range was on the S&P. It was 25 handles. That means it's 25 handles. What does it mean? It means it goes up 25 and it can go down in 20, the total to equal the total movement of 2507. Okay, so basically we get down here, there was a weekly range on the S&P, and a weekly range can also be the same movement can happen on a daily basis. Doesn't have to wait for the whole week. This was the combined week movement up and down for the whole week on the S&P. And what we're looking for, MMTs, is where the mathematical deterioration comes into play, because that's going to tell you in your SMF trend analyzer that the topping pattern at price above the market is weakening, and all week in selected names in the NASDAQ, all the live trades that you participated in, you were told to sell short and certain different combinations on the SQQQQ, the TQQQQ, and understanding where those up and down moves between the bear and the bull would be mathematically precise, and knowing when to enter the action on your intraday 3-minute charts. So basically what we're going to be looking for is the higher of this half bar. I'm going to take this half bar. We're going to start with number 1. If I'm pulling mathematically below 1144, the higher it gets intraday, the weaker the top